Greg Combet, welcome to News 24.
Thanks, Lyndall.
Do you have any advice that your legislation on the carbon price may have constitutional problems?
Well, in the formulation of the legislation, we obviously consider those issues, and we're of course extremely confident that it's on sound constitutional grounds, and particularly reliance upon the external affairs power and the corporations power and other ordinary heads of power that the Commonwealth has available to it. So we're sure it's very sound.
So you're confident if Clive Palmer, his companies do launch a High Court challenge, that it will hold up to that?
Well, Clive Palmer lists one of his hobbies as litigation, and he seems to launch plenty of legal cases, or threaten to, so I see it in that category. It's not really a serious proposition, and frankly, Clive Palmer would be better spending the wealth he's generated out of the minerals boom on reducing the greenhouse gas emissions in his operations than spending it on high-priced lawyers. Do you think the challenge will ever eventuate? Well, who knows? You have to ask Mr Palmer. I think it's a media story, not a serious legal case.
Has anyone ever raised questions with you about the constitutionality, raised serious issues about it?
No, no one has, and yet you can imagine, as Minister responsible for it, it's something I paid attention to in developing legislation.
The opposition also says today that there's a clause in Westfield's leases that allows Westfield to pass on any cost increases from the carbon tax from greenhouse gas emissions to the shop owners, to the leaseholders. That potentially means that costs are going to be passed right through to consumers in the end, won't it?
Well, let's just keep a bit of perspective. Firstly, on the specific instance of Westfield, I understand a clause like that, and there'd be similar clauses for other things, has been around in their leases for quite some time, but we'll probably hear from Westfield about that. Secondly, if there is any unjustified effort to pass through costs that don't exist, the ACCC will certainly have a good look at those issues. But thirdly, you've got to remember that the introduction of a carbon price only represents a very modest price increase across the economy, less than 1%. That is 0.7% impact on the CPI. And of course, the government's doing a number of things to help people. Tax cuts, increases in family tax benefits, increases in the pension, and a number of things for business as well. It's tied up with our efforts to cut company tax to 29% and also to introduce an instant asset write-off for small businesses of up to $6,500 for each asset. Now, these are very important things that relieve pressure for families and businesses across the economy, and every single one of them is opposed by the Liberals. But
in essence, it's how the carbon price is designed, though, that it gets passed through and hopefully changes behaviour along the way, but it does get passed to big businesses, who pass it down to small businesses, who pass it down to consumers, and that's why you're compensating them.
And that's why I make the point that after it's passed through into prices in the economy, it's a very modest price impact, 0.7% impact on the CPI, and for example, we're increasing pensions by 1.7%. To meet that price impact. We are helping people who need it the most, an average of a $300 a year tax cut for people earning up to $80,000, a trebling of the tax-free threshold to more than $18,000 to help low-income earners and implement the tax cut. These are very, very important benefits that take the pressure off working families in Australia, all of which are opposed by Tony Abbott. And the other important policy thing he's opposing, of course, is our effort to spread the benefits of the resources boom to the rest of the economy. I'm responsible for the manufacturing industry. It's under a lot of pressure from the high value of the Australian dollar. A cut in the company tax from 30 to 29% is pretty important for manufacturing. Tony Abbott opposes it all.
The cut for company tax for small business, though, will pass because the Greens are supporting that part of it. But there are many small businesses that don't pay company tax. Are you doing anything for them?
Increasing the tax-free threshold. People who are in small businesses and they're unincorporated and paying personal income tax, they get the benefit of increase in the tax-free threshold, and that applies the same way to any other pay-as-you-go income taxpayer. The same arrangements apply, and that's a significant benefit for many small business people. Plus, the $6,500 instant asset write-off is a very important benefit for small business. That is, you can totally depreciate a capital purchase, any number of capital items during the course of a financial year, up to the value of $6,500 and $5,000 for a motor vehicle. This is a massive benefit for small business, all opposed by Tony Abbott and the Liberals. It's incredible.
Greg Combet, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Lyndall.